Thank you for attending this press conference. I was sent some notes from my staff about a recently concluded press conference from the leader of the opposition. So I'll start by dispensing with some of the issues that he spoke on before I get into more substantive issues. As we've come to expect, we've had a lot of gaffe in Guyanese terms, a very poorly researched positions taken by the leader of the opposition. So he's returned to the theme that he's very familiar with, the issue of threatening the country and the People's Progressive Party. So he says the PPP understands only brute force and ignorance. We know that he can display that with a high degree of sophistication, brute force and ignorance. But let me say to Mr. Norton, we don't feel threatened, and that may have worked in the distant past, very, very distant past. But we're never going to allow what happened in the past to go unanswered. That his brute force and ignorance would be met with a strong response from the law of the country, that should he seek to display that. But we know that his capacity to do so is limited given people fleeing in droves the PNC because they feel uninspired by his leadership and by their future. They have no future whatsoever given the current posture of that party, which is one that seeks to divide our country on every single occasion and on every single issue along racial lines. And we saw it displayed in a not so subtle way today at today's press conference too, when they spoke about a seemingly innocent issue of what's happening in Region 10. So Norton said, Linden plays football. They want a ground up to the FIFA standards rather than the ICC standards. And then he goes on to say, if we want an ICC ground, we should use the one that Kashif and Shanghai used to hold a dance on for playing cricket. So he's implying that people in Linden, they play football, Afro-Guyanese play football, and Indo-Guyanese cricket. And cricket is not of any major importance to the people of Region 10, and particularly Linden. And Figueroa said the same thing, a member of parliament, practically said the same thing. Now the fact is that the Bayrock ground it would be used, we're just completing a synthetic track at the Bayrock ground. At the center of the track, there's going to be a football field. At that ground, they're going to be, we've just gone out to procure lights that are up to FIFA standards. So you're going to have a ground with FIFA standard lights in Linden that is currently under construction. Secondly, at the Mackenzie facility, we've just completed the ground so that it will be comparable with the ground at Providence, and we are now procuring ICC standard lights for the Mackenzie ground. And that would be a multi-purpose ground. So the fact is that Linden will have both a FIFA standard ground and an ICC standard ground, that they can play both cricket and football. Further, at Retrieve, where there is no ground that hasn't been touched for 40 years, we're also starting to develop that ground that would allow 3 of the schools in Linden to have access to a ground for the first time after almost a generation of not having access there. So these are the facts. An ICC standard ground with lights, ICC lighting, because ICC lighting is very different. The size of the ball, Mr. Norton, is smaller. And the FIFA standard ground, the lighting there, would be a bigger size ball that Mr. Norton needs to know about. And so this is, we're going to have both. I'm sorry I'm being a little bit serious, but it made me remember something else. But the fact is that we're not trying to steer people. It's not a racist thing, Mr. Norton. We're, for the first time, developing 2 grounds, in fact 3 grounds, in the town of Linden that will allow us to play international type cricket there and international football. Now contrast that with the APNU 5 years in office, where they did practically nothing in these areas. And they're also going to have a synthetic track there too. Contrast that with the 5 years that they did practically nothing. He should be ashamed to even mention this issue at a press conference. But as I said, he's ill-advised and he picks on everything that he sees race in every single issue. Doesn't do any research whatsoever. Now, if he wants to know what the plans are for the country, they're very evident. We have spoken about them in our manifesto, that we want in every region a multi-purpose sporting facility. We have already started in the hinterland to identify where those will go. We're going to upgrade the facilities in Region 3. At Anna Regina, already we're doing a stadium in Region 6. We'll do the same thing in Region 5. This is a promise that we made in our manifesto, that we're going to upgrade sporting facilities right across the country. And we are busy implementing that promise. So this is something that we need to be very cognizant of as a country about the APNU's thing. So now he has a beef with Kashif and Shanghai. Now that's a private matter, but it's not so private, because almost every Afro-Guyanese person who gets a contract, first of all, they say, we're not giving Afro-Guyanese contracts. But if an Afro-Guyanese gets a contract, then suddenly they're stooges of the PPP. If they choose, as the people in New Amsterdam, a number of people chose to switch sides and become candidates of the PPP, they're stooges. So his problem is a bigger issue. He doesn't want Afro-Guyanese to progress in this country so that it can fit into his jaundiced narrative of discrimination. So they will come out hard against any progressive bright, progressive Afro-Guyanese are people who are developing because they come out of the mold. They disprove their theory that the PPP is a racist party because you can make progress as an Afro-Guyanese under a PPP government. And that is the problem he has here. So he's very upset about who holds dances on the ground and all of that. Very petty-minded person. But behind this all is a narrative. They're very sour. They don't want Afro-Guyanese to make any progress for the simple reason then they can go and campaign that the PPP has been discriminating. Now, I'm not going to deal with all of the other nonsense that he spoke about because he did speak a lot of nonsense on the economic side. So I saw that he parked his economic advisor, the economist, who is not an economist, and he spoke on their economic philosophy. If you look at it again, it's, oh, we will introduce school feeding program, a school feeding program. Never mind that they took away the $10,000 grant from the school kids. We must forget that. But they would introduce that. He went back and repeated this issue about rental subsidies instead of trying to get people to own homes. The same old PNC philosophy of consumption, not construction, not ownership, not accumulation of wealth at the family level, but one of consuming every single thing that you have under the sun in public expenditure. And then when we don't have anything, how are we going to sustain the subsidies in the long run? We'd all go back to the 80s when we didn't have food to eat and when we had to flee this country. It's the same old disproved economic philosophy, theory that never worked in Guyana. It never worked because, and much of this promise, much of his promises or most of them are premised on oil money. But what happens if a year from now, the oil prices collapse to $30 a barrel as they did in 2015? What happens then? Because the cost basically to extract the oil now is around that level. That's the cost of extraction of the oil. What happens if it collapses to that level? Then we can't sustain all of these things that he's speaking about. So you have to plan with a range in mind that is not the extreme end of the range. And clearly that point is lost on Mr. Norton and his advisors. But of course, he says the PPP has no real infrastructure plan, but he wants to spend every bit of the money on consumption, as they did in the 5 years too, because we recognize that their capital budget in each of the 5 years was lower than 2014. So he wants to return to that failed economic strategy. Now clearly, he wants to divert our attention from what's happening at the government level. And my job as part of this government is to keep the focus and the country's focus on all the things that are happening that are changing the lives of our people, even if I have to repeat them at every press conference, because sometimes people have short memories and they can get sidetracked by some of these issues that the opposition comes up with every single time. And so we must never forget about the low-carbon development strategy. The Green State strategy, we had a low-carbon development strategy before APNU got into office, As a result of that approach, we earned $250 million, of which about 220 was disbursed. That APNU utilized a lot of those resources. They were opposed to it in the past. When we were doing it, they came into office, they had the resources at their disposal, they utilized a lot of those resources, gave out grants to many of the politically connected people from the facilities, the grants and loans. They utilized some for all sorts of things, even utilized some of the money to develop the Green State strategy. That failed. The Green State strategy was never adopted at the country level because it had no sustainability. It brought only further obligations on the state of Guyana to make expenditures that would have displaced expenditure from other important tasks in this country. So we returned to office. In the first 2 years, we spent, in the first few months, almost 2 months, we started re-engaging. We started working on an expanded LCDS. We engaged by December of 2020 with the Architecture for Red Plush transaction. We applied for a certification program for our credit. We worked for 2 years through a lengthy process of verification, external consultants and a number of verifiers coming here, looking at our policy, practices, etc. As a result of which we had our credit certified. We then got another set of their surrogates, the APA, who has now complained. They're trying to block, they've launched a grievance process through ARTS, and they're trying to block the next year's allocation being made to Guyana. So APA has done that formally, and so they're back at it again in a different form. As a result of which, we have now, because of that certification, we have sold $700 million worth of forest carbon at a minimum, because if it's traded further, we will get 60% of the upside. We have set a new price in the market, the voluntary market for forest carbon, which is almost triple the price that was being paid for forest carbon or voluntary in the voluntary markets currently. And we expect that by this deal that it will even lead to further market development. The prices would be escalated. We still have 70% of those credits to be sold. We are looking at going through a competitive process to see that we maximize our take. If we extrapolate, we will get over $2 billion earning from this sector, which will go to the indigenous communities. Significant part will go to the indigenous community, over $400 million going to the indigenous communities. Imagine having, once we sell all of the carbon, say at the same price, and their share is 15%. So that will be 400 million, it would be $80-something billion will go to these communities. And so that is what that would help to transform the lives of these villages, the 240-something villages that are now beneficiaries of this credit. And the first tranche they already have in their bank account, all of these villages, more money than some of the villages have ever had in a bank account. And that is from the first $150 million that had been disbursed so far. And so this is all positive. We are one of the few credits in the forestry sector that can now be sold in a compliance market, the Corsair market, which is a compliance market for abating airlines emission. And so all of this has happened. This is a positive thing from a sector that was not earning anything, that was becoming a liability to Guyana under APNU with no vision. We've taken it into just over 2 years, transformed it, made it into a world leading, because this is world leading. It's the biggest deal in the world now surrounding sale of forest carbon, a world dealing arrangement that would cause Guyana to earn a huge sum of money that will go primarily for two purposes: to the indigenous communities and for adaptation across Guyana. That is to help us better manage water, flood control, water management, sea defenses, new cocas, new canals, new conservancy dams, strengthening our conservancy dam, preparing for a future with adverse weather patterns, and also helping the agricultural sector and other sectors that are climate at a higher risk from climate-related events to better adapt to those changes. So I don't want people to forget that. Norton would want to talk every day about making even football and cricket about racism. That's it, with an aim in mind. We want to talk about what we have been doing for Guyana and changing the image of this country and earning more money to address the needs of our country and our people so they're not flooded out, they can keep earning. We here in Region 4, we don't have to go through some of the adverse conditions that we had in the past. That's the first major issue. In the health sector, I want to come back to the point about what we discovered. $10 billion of expired drugs when we did the audit at the drug bond. There was practically no proper procurement system. I can go back and list all of the issues we had with procurement in that period, in the 2016 to 2020 period, about the breakdown of the entire system for procurement, the massive shortages. You talk to the doctors, and not people who were sympathetic to the PPP. They said within 6 months of the PPP leaving office, they had they have a list of drugs in the hospital. More items were short than were available at that period. We had to destroy all of that after the audit, clean out these drugs that were bought. They bought quantities that we'll not use of some of the drugs in 100 years. In 100 years, we wouldn't have used them because they were just buying from anybody, from suitcase operators, etc. And it was literally suitcase people coming in with suitcases and going to a particular minister's office, and that minister will send them over to the Georgetown Hospital for the people to buy the drugs. So that was what we discovered. And of course, the hospitals were run down. I have some good images I may share someday, like at Enmore, the polyclinic, and all these places. Mold on the wall, the tiles out, the equipment at Georgetown Hospital not functioning, most of them not functioning. And so we had the first year, and then the pandemic. This hospital here, built with not for a hospital, nothing in it, basically, the pandemic hospital. And within a year, we got rid of the old drugs, we burnt them, destroyed them, restocked the place. Now we do have shortages, some shortages, not because the drug is not available, but because of what we found some unconscionable people who are operating in the sectors. We find this in some of the regions. We have all of the drug at the bond, but in the distribution, they don't get it out to the region. So it is something that we've been looking at carefully about the distribution system. But we do have a few of those. But most of the drugs are available now. You can go back to the hospital and get this. That was the first task, to get the system to go back and start functioning. But simultaneously, we started planning for a healthcare system of the future. And not just planning, but started implementing a program for that. And the program was to get these 12 new hospitals, 4 in the hinterland that you saw in the news just recently with telemedicine facilities, and 8 on the coast. In New Amsterdam, the 2 biggest ones would be in New Amsterdam and here at Ogle. These would be the 2 biggest European standard hospitals, rehabilitating all of the existing ones, Georgetown, Linden, Bartica, all of the others. So a major program to do that, bringing in Mount Sinai to help us with the management level. That is what has been going on in healthcare to prepare for future, where, maybe in 3 years' time, where healthcare in Guyana will be transformed radically. That's what we're working on. They wouldn't like you to talk about that there because they will identify maybe one hospital where you have, because of human error, some problem, and try to distract attention from the core plan of what we've been doing in the past 2.5, 3 years as government to get this, to transform this sector. The education sector, we have major work there. We have some schools overflowing. So we have even gone to an intermediate, when we look at the experience of the Hope School, or even in Georgetown, sometimes it takes, when awarding these contracts, 4 or 5 years to complete them. So we are going for an intermediate solution in schools where we have overflow of students, where we're putting up in 6 months, we want to put up a facility, a prefab facility with good floor, classrooms, fans in them, etc., as an intermediate facility to handle overflow and to make sure that we move back to a system where we don't have to do double shifts every day because it affects parents. So we started coming up with a plan to do that, to tackle overflow whilst we're building new schools. So this year, there are going to be about 13 new schools built. Nearly 10 of them are in the hinterland because that's where we have serious overflows. We have dormitories, etc. So that's our plan in that area, the scholarship program. In no period in our history we had given out so many scholarships, because we have some more resources now. We have mentioned this, and people, if you look at who's getting this scholarship, you would see that the recipients look like Guyana, not people of one race or religion. They come from all over our country, that they are getting that. So, and again, when you compare that with the track record of APNU, you will see what happened in that sector. That very few scholarships and only hand-picked people. If you go to the agricultural sector, we recall the minister, you were hearing about the agricultural sector, that the rice farmers are greedy, that's private business, that the cane farmers, even when they severed the people, Holder said they shouldn't get their severance money, they will spend it out. That's what people earn. Drainage and irrigation budget was cut, taxes instituted on pesticides, fertilizer, all their equipment. That was no help when they had flooding. And look at the transformation now. All of this, We've removed the taxes on all of those issues that I mentioned. We're spending more on drainage and irrigation, farm-to-market roads. The farmers have had cash grants. Last year alone, we did nearly 4,500 breeding pigs, boars, and sows to give out to people. This is so that they can do the development. We have a Black Giant program. So it's not big people alone getting help or the rice farmers. It's livestock. We're bringing in more better breeding animal. A lot more is being help given to people at a grassroots level. Through the $250,000 grant chicken project, we have had nearly 1,000 people start small chicken programs, and they got just a $250,000 grant. They start with 100. A lot of help to people in those areas. The whole environment, we went to India, we're looking at broccoli production, we started producing corn and soya. All of this is happening in the agricultural sector. Contrast that with agriculture on the APNU. Contrast that. If you can go back to the 5 years, you think that agriculture had no future in this country. But the energy that we've put back in that sector. Let's look at mining. The miners were despondent. After all the promises were made, they started seeing the taxes on equipment, the royalty rate was increased, a lot of pressure, they increased the tributers tax, everything. More pressure on the miners. We have changed a lot of that. We've removed the taxes on the equipment, we've removed the tributers tax totally. We've reduced back the royalty rate, and the miners, they have had a bad weather spell because when it rains, it's hard to mine, but they have a more favorable environment. That is what's happening in mining. On infrastructure across this country, we have awarded now over 2,500 roads, community roads, right across Guyana. And you see the difference. You go to communities, never had a road before, you see them getting a concrete road. We have had hundreds of small contractors starting to work now once again, well, not once again, they never work, but they will get a small road contract now to build a concrete road. If we do asphaltic road, they would never be able to do that because the method of laying in the base work and the equipment that they needed, and also it's very sensitive to weather and getting an asphalt plant or the asphalt on time in some of the remote parts of the country would have been a difficult proposition. But now inland, across the country. And this year we have that program, and we said we want people in the regions, the small contractors in the regions, their own regions, to get the work. When I was in Linden, I said, we're looking to award the contracts of roads, over $1 billion of roads in that region to people in that region, in Region 10. The same thing in Berbice and Essequibo. So you have more contractors, small contractors of every race becoming, getting work in that regard. But people are also seeing the changes in their communities now. And that's only on community roads. If you talk about the highways, you've seen a transformation. The highways. We've had 5 new major highways now that we've started or about to start. 5 new major highways. That would lead to maybe hundreds of kilometers of roads expanded into 4-lane. In fact, maybe about 300-400 kilometers, which we are hoping would happen before 2026, 2027. Imagine 400 kilometers of highways being completed. And of course, there's some seminal bridges. The bridges all to Lethem. All the structures, nearly 40-something structures to Lethem are up to international standards are being built now. So when we go back to fix that road, we don't need to go back and deal with the bridges. And even now, the bridges were the biggest humbug to like trucks coming in from Brazil or trucks going into Brazil, so that we can open up that route. This is all happening in the last 2.5, 3 years. And with the pandemic, having to deal with the pandemic and cost of living. Coming to cost of living, we had money in the budget last year to address it. We helped. This year again, we put some money in the budget. It has abated a bit, but we still have money. The cash grant program, the children, because we care grant, the pensioners cash grant, and also the increase of their pension. The fishermen, farmers got help. 13,000 people are now working on part-time jobs who didn't have a job on the afternoon, leaving out the tens of thousands of others who have been working because of the dynamism in the economy. These are all things that are happening. And I'm mentioning all of this because that's what APNU would not like you to hear about. They want to talk only about racism and about some plan that they had or will have, but we've seen their planning and their track record. Nothing. And people by now, looking at Norton and Lowe and the mediocre gang that goes to these press conferences, would know that they have no capacity to lead this transformation of the country. They can judge for themselves. Our people are smart people. On the oil and gas sector too, as I mentioned the last time, in just a very short period, we have led the transformation of the framework that we promised. We've been consistent to what we said in opposition and our promises in the manifesto, from the passage of the local content law to reforming the fiscal regime, to reforming the PSA, which we are doing now, and we've just had to extend the auction to mid-July, because we promise we will get a new PSA and a new Petroleum Act, replacing the one from 1986, before we conclude the auction. And so we're having a hard time because we're going through it in great detail. It's taking longer than we anticipated. It's a lot of work. We've gone through a lot of the issues that we know have to be modernized, and we still need time to consult on the law. So we've extended the deadline to July, mid-July. So this would give us enough time to do all of that and hopefully pass the legislation before then. But these were promises we made: new PSA, new fiscal terms, new Petroleum Act, and a reformed Natural Resources Fund Act. All of these have been done. The EPA permits have evolved from being extremely weak now to closer to international standards, and in some areas exceeding international standards. For example, on the carbon tax, we have exceeded some international standards for these permits. We've strengthened the licensing regime. We're doing a more rigorous engagement with the licensing regime review through several sources. We have more technical people. These are all things that we promised and we've been doing to improve the framework. So contrast that, I see a lot of Ramjatan now. I heard he released the audit that Stabrook had gotten before, which was not a secret document. It's with the technical staff. So he released it. But it's, I don't know if he's so divorced from reality that he has no sense of shame. This is a person who defended the agreement of 2016 not being made public. The agreement that was not, that should have been filed with the registry, that was kept by a few people under lock and key, ministers, was not with any technical person, and try to compare that with a process where the politician said, you deal with this at the technical level because it's a complex issue, GRA and the others. Let our technical people ensure that we get the best out of these audits. Contrast that, and you're going to go and release that as though you're making that, that you're adding value to this debate. It's a shameless sort of thing. And I want to say, going back, because we have a lot of weird views on this oil and gas industry, a lot of it coming from the Kaichor News. But one thing I can say about this government is that at a single press conference, we've answered more policy issues and policy questions than the entire 5 years of the APNU on oil and gas. You tell me one press conference where you had Trotman answer any issue on the oil and gas sector. Or when Granger took that over, how many times he spoke about any details surrounding anything in the industry. You show me that, go back and show me in the 5 years of APNU, how many times. And what they did in 5 years, the questions that they didn't answer or they hid from, in a single press conference, we will tackle more issues than that and give you clear policy position that you may not agree with, because you got some people who will never agree to anything, but we'll come to that in a moment about agreement on issues. So, on the hinterland development, I'd like to focus on that too, what APNU did to indigenous people. The firing of nearly 2,000 of them, those people are back at work. Their numbers have been increased. They got back their jobs through the CSOs. We now have a hinterland development program. The presidential grant has been restored and we're expanding the areas. You heard about the 10 new schools, the 4 hospitals in the region. Each of these communities before the end of the year will have a tractor and trailer to support their agricultural drive in the areas. That's what has happened in the last 2.5 years in the indigenous communities, rather than lectures that if you get more land, you can't get oil and gas money. That was said by a government minister in the parliament. It's in the Hansard. So you can find it there. Contrast that again. So I wanted today to make sure that you understand the difference between these two parties, the opposition and the government too now. So the clear difference in philosophy, in economic policy, and in commitment to the people of this country and our ability to deliver. Vast, vast difference. A vast difference. And I can demonstrate that to you. I don't have to go around, beat around the bush like they do. You ask them a question at a press conference, and they do. I hope that in the local government elections, people would pay attention to that, our track record too, and allow us to do what we have done at the national level in places like Linden and New Amsterdam and Georgetown, where APNU was, since independence, 57 years, have controlled these places. And they have made a mess without our involvement in these areas, like government going in and fixing the roads, etc. They would have been in a sad shape. So we're saying to the residents of these areas, give us a chance now. and let us show you that we can do in these places what we have done at the national level. Restore this country from a bankrupt country that was paying almost every dollar that it collected in revenue as debt to today one of the lowest debt figures in the world, and even before oil and gas. Even before oil and gas. And so, and with all the progress. So we're going to take that case to the residents of these areas to say, give us a chance now to let us show you. Because for 57 years you've had APNU in these areas, and they practically just collected money, the rates and taxes, and done nothing else for these bodies. On that note, I wanted to deal with a couple of issues. I saw it's a figure there at the press conference. So on the 13th of April 2023, the Kaieteur News said government pussyfooting on correcting repeated skullduggery committed at state agencies. And so I'm not going to go through the whole article, but just to show you that when you have incompetence and misleading information in a newspaper, it should, at least the journalists should have some pride in researching things before they write. So it says Parliamentary Standing Order 82.3 specifies that within 90 days of the presentation of a report from the Public Account Committee PAC, the government shall table its Treasury Memorandum with the recommendations. However, this is it, however, it has been 117 days since the adoption of the report, and the government is yet to table its Treasury Memorandum for that report. And so it says basically a lot of this skullduggery somehow is associated with this deficiency of the government not tabling a report that by law, by the standing order, should have been tabled already. Now, the fact of the matter is that only the 2016 report has so far been adopted by the National Assembly and a resolution passed. So the Minister of Finance, and I have here the date, this is it. So this is from the clerk saying to the ministry, basically, resolution number 46. It says, resolve that the report of the Public Accounts Committee on its examination of the public accounts of Ghana for the year 2016 be adopted and refer the report to the government for consideration. When this goes to the Minister of Finance, then the minister, within 90 days, then has to submit his Treasury Memorandum, which he did on February 24th. This went late in December of 2022. He submitted it with 100 copies of the Treasury Memorandum. So the 2017 and the 2018 report, the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, Mr. Figueroa, who was quoted liberally in this article about the lack of accountability and all of that, he now needs to go to the Assembly and move a motion. And the motion has to be debated. And only when the debate is concluded, then the clerk would say, issue the resolution. And thereafter, the Minister of Finance has 90 days to submit the Treasury Memorandum. So the Minister of Finance can't submit a Treasury Memorandum now on a report I don't understand where this is coming from. This is total ignorance of, one would think, a simple procedure in Parliament. But a whole story was built around this by Figueroa and the Kaichor News, when it's factually inaccurate. There is no way the minister, if he wanted to, even if he had it prepared, could do it now, because a lot depends on when the chair moves the motion, and which is Figueroa now, when he moves the motion and when it's debated and when the resolution of Parliament is concluded. Only thereafter the minister can submit his memorandum. Now, clearly, if the purpose of this newspaper is journalism, it has to do better, because that's factually inaccurate. So, secondly, I saw, since I'm on Kaichor News, let me continue. So after I spoke about the Marriott Hotel, after Kaichor News had the story, not Kaichor, Stabrook had it, and I gave an explanation. I saw the headline that basically implying that I said that we're selling to pay off private investors. And then Mr. Lal again said that there are some secret private investors who were hiding behind the bank, Republic Bank. So I don't know how secret private investors hiding behind Republic Bank, but let me make it clear today now that not a cent, and the audits would show that, not a cent, the government of Guyana owns 100% of this hotel. This hotel was supposed to be developed as a public-private partnership. They were almost on the verge of concluding the public-private partnership with a firm from Hong Kong that was interested in the hotel and the casino. If you look at Marriott, it's built, the area where the exhibition is held, that was supposed to be the casino area. It's empty now, and that's where the oil and gas exhibition was held. This company from Hong Kong operated casinos. So that was the public-private partnership, was supposed to move forward. Then we had all of these articles, a few hundred articles negative about it. And I have this, I'm gonna give this to you so you can see the assault on the project, led by mainly the Kaichor News. All hundreds of articles, lying, blatant lies, total lies, blatant. You have a full report that we issued on it in 2015 showing challenges to the development of the Guyana Marriott Hotel. You take these headlines, and I think Winston Brassington might have won some of the lawsuits on the basis of allegations against the Kaichor News, on the basis of allegations made about the Marriott too. So you will get a chance to see for yourself the assault by Kaichor News and others on this project. So we couldn't go forward. We said we will do it on our own. That's why we had to take a loan now, because part of it was coming in as equity and part as a loan. So the investor was going to bring in some equity and a loan. The government part was to take a less of a return on its equity share at the beginning to encourage the private equity investor. That didn't happen. So it is 100% owned by the government of Guyana. Now, APNU was hunting us in the whole 5 years. They established SOKU, SARA. Don't you think they would have Jordan? Jordan It's been the most outrageous liar in many areas. But don't you think every opportunity he had, trying to cut us down? If they had paid a cent to a private secret investor or Republic Bank, actually, Republic Bank should sue you. And I would encourage them to sue you, Mr. Lal, that you are saying that they've been in skullduggery with some private investors, because I know we're not. We don't have any private investor. But it's this, when exposed that they were telling a lie, they doubled down on the lie. They doubled down on the lie. Now, if you could provide a single shred of evidence, that there was a private secret investor through Republic Bank or through us that got a cent from the Marriott, I will resign now. You said you're going to get a chance. But if you cannot, you must apologize and stop lying to the people of this country. You have not apologized to me up to now, although you promised to do so in 3 weeks if you couldn't get a power purchase agreement for the solar power. I saw somebody else said that they could get it too. You have not done so because it's a lie. You're a lot of fake news, and you keep repeating these lies every time. So today, again, we keep going through this saga. I'm sorry I have to return to it. But it's, in this country, you have to battle against, well, you have media, and then you have this Kaichor News is a campaigning newspaper now. It's campaigning for you as editor. I don't think you even come here as a journalist, because we've answered every single question that you have asked. We may have a different view. And I'm sure that any question you'd ask today again, we've already been in the public domain as giving our opinion on. You can't come up with anything original. It's the same old regurgitation of the same old issue. If people only spend 10 minutes of quality time going through all these views, then you will see that. So this is, again, a series of lies. But to, with a bold face, say that without a shred of evidence. I'm looking forward to hearing who this private investor was and how much money they got from whom, because I'm sure that APNU, in the 5 years they were there, didn't pay no private investor. And when Marriott was built just when they opened, just as APNU came into office. So you tell us who collected money if there was a private secret investor. Tell the people of this country, and don't waffle now. Since you know about it, tell the people the name and the person. You're going to get a chance. I'm going to come to that later. So I didn't want to deal with some other issues, but since I'm on it now, the GCOM matter, I've seen Norton again, he and the Carol Joseph, the alliance, unholy alliance, they're trying to run down GCOM again. But through Carol Joseph, I have no doubts about this. They're still trying to block the local government elections. They have a court case, and they are hoping somehow that they get a ruling in their favor that will stop the local government elections. So while Norton says, oh, I don't want to let my strategy out in the public, I don't know what strategy you'd have in local government elections. You got to go on campaign and ask people for their votes, and either you're contesting or not. Simple questions. What kind of strategy, big tactical thinking you have to put into that? Are you contesting or not? Yes or no? And if you're contesting, you have to go out and ask people for their vote. And you have to say what are you going to do for them or what you have done for them. You have to convince them and then try to bring them out to vote. But he makes it look like it's some very big cerebral kind of process going on here, and it's complex and it's shrouded in mystery. It's pure nonsense. Don't let the gravity of a stone, a contrived one, fool you. It's very hollow within. And so So this is a simple matter. They don't want local government elections. They don't want local government elections. So he could be very straight with the country and say, yes, we're contesting or we're not. And I wonder, as I said the last time, who would want to even vote for a party that can still make up their minds up to now, 1 week away from nomination day, which is next Monday, less than a week away from nomination day, tell you clearly whether they're contesting. Who wants to vote for a party like that? This is not behavior reflective of a major opposition party. So we shouldn't look at that. And then the Rickford Burke had some nasty things to say about the candidates from New Amsterdam. So again, in the same tone, people calling people slaves and slave catchers and all that sort of thing. This guy who portrays himself as a revolutionary, but he is a simple, low-life con man who thrives off of ripping people off. Rickford Burke. If you have all the details about his life over there and everything else, he scrunches around, he lives off of causes, he lives off of donations from people, and extortion. So I want to say, because I gather it's a business of his, that there's some GNN, some network he has that he posts on these networks. And then you saw the case that's before the court. He got some people locally to go and extort the businessman, saying we can take down this negative post if you pay us some money, because the negative post will affect your business or something else. It would harm your consumers. People may not want to come and buy your services. So that's what he's engaged in. So anybody who because he may be doing it surreptitiously to a large number of people that we don't know of. This businessman was bold enough to record him trying, after the deal wasn't going through. He called himself to encourage the man to make the payment, the extortion money. So if there may be lots of Guyanese who he's been doing this to, because I think that's how he survives. Please inform the police. Please inform the police if you've been subjected to one of his schemes for enriching people. I saw he's gone on with this vile sort of thing. I think I'll end there, and then I'll come back to some of the questions. Maybe one issue before I end the press conference, I'll come back to. Thank you. Yes, please. Yeah, okay, Gamal, you want to go on? Okay, yeah.
Okay, Jamal King. So I'd just like an update. If you.
Oh, yeah, you got a mic there.
Jamal King, Oil Now. Do you have a timeline for the review and approval of the Waru project that ExxonMobil has proposed?
Yeah.
And any significant changes expected in the updated production sharing agreement that's going to be completed and there are some regulatory issues in terms of starting up construction on the gas to energy project, namely the review of the field development plan and the license. Do you have a timeline for when that could be completed? Have you been able to make progress on getting the loan from the United States Exim Bank to go toward the funding of that project? And the Environmental Assessment Board is currently reviewing appeals into the EPA's decision not to require a separate environmental impact assessment for the natural gas power plant. Do you foresee that potentially delaying the start of construction on this project? And finally, do you have a decision on who is going to build and operate the oil refinery?
The first two I missed. What were the first two?
First two was timeline for a decision on Exxon's proposed Uaru project.
Oh,
And the second was whether there are any significant changes expected in the new PSA from the drafts to what will be updated based on the comments in the consultation period.
okay. So a lot of these are work in progress that would be concluded soon. And you have the timelines for their conclusion. So the Waru project, the review has practically been completed. And that is going through a final review with the ministry staff. And we expect the minister within a short period, maybe a maximum of, I shouldn't give a short maximum, but a maximum of about 2 to 3 weeks should be the field development plan would be completed. The EPA has to also issue its permit. I gather that that is near completion. So I think that within the same timeline, they should be ready for the Waru project, both the EPA permit and the license for that project. On the PSA, there are quite a few issues that came in, commenting on. We're reviewing those. We still have a number of people who are sending stuff to us because although the timeline was 2 weeks, but since we're still in the process of doing the new PSA, where the comments are coming in and we're paying attention to them. We're not going to ignore people's comments. So Norton said the 2 weeks were too short. And remember the last press conference, his economist said they will submit their comments sometime in the future, but we don't know when that will be. It never happen because it's just laziness on their part. They could have, as I pointed out, years ago, people know what was wrong with the PSA. Everybody's been writing about it, speaking about it, what needs to be corrected. And therefore, by now, they should have formed an impression of those critical issues. We pointed them out several times. It's been in the media all the time, and they should have had a view by now. So no, they haven't submitted any comments as yet. And so, but if they submit now, I don't think we'll ignore their comments totally, if they submit. So we have an outer time limit that we have established now for both the legislation and the PSA, which is mid-July, the outer time limit. So we're not going to rush the process, but that's the outer time limit. But we're taking every comment seriously. We're taking every comment seriously because the oil and gas companies also have given comments. And remember, we want to ensure two things: that we get more benefits for Guyana from the fiscal side, more business flowing to Guyanese companies and individuals. That's through the local content law. We want a PSA that can properly regulate the sector from a safety perspective and from an environmental perspective, bearing in mind the need to move to a decarbonized world, all of those things. But we also want to attract investments because you have 80-something countries now out there looking for through auctions, looking for investment dollars in the oil and gas sector, and it's not and the investment dollar is shrinking as many of these global companies try to move away from upstream activities in the oil and gas industry. They move away from the drilling and the production activity because of the same net zero imperative and the need to move towards renewable. So that we need to balance the two objectives. We want to get the investment dollars here so that we can keep the momentum going here. Not just momentum from for the oil and gas companies, but momentum in the economy and for all of the Guyanese who are now building a business around this new industry, emerging industry, as well as the locals who are working in the industry. So the PSA is an iterative thing. So when we get comments from them too, we have to pay attention to their comments. So it's not all one-sided. And so you may see a balancing act in the final PSA. What will not be compromised, basically, the fiscal terms are practically set in stone. If anything, the same net change may take place, you know. Anyhow, let me don't get that getting a little too complex at this stage. But the timeline has been set for both those documents, so to be completed. And so that's on the PSA. Yes, the field development plan for the project, right, LISA 1, that would allow us to give an extension, because if we're building the gas to energy project, and it comes in on 2024, 2025, and the permit expires in 2037, I think. So that we'd only have 12 years more of gas coming in on that pipeline, but the project is built on a 20 years lifespan. That is, the numbers are run on that. So the field development plan and all of that would allow us, once we've completed that, and it's about near completed, would allow us to move to do that, to allow this to happen, to ensure that we have adequate gas coming in to generate power. And I would urge once again for everyone here, particularly those who like to, I'm not mentioning any names, but to write about solar, to look at the gas development plans in Europe, which is how they're moving to develop gas resources. From 3 years ago, when they were saying, they were very puritanical about it, going to Glasgow, the COP in Glasgow, and saying, no gas, nobody must develop gas. Now to a total turnaround, with 180 degrees. They've gone now to saying gas has to be the transitional fuel of the future. So that is being done. On the loan, our application is in. The Minister of Finance has had several engagements with Exim Bank, and we from what he said, it's making progress towards the conclusion of the loan. So progress is being made in that regard. The EAB appeal, that's a process provided for by our laws, and we will allow, I don't want to be premature in my comments, but I want to allow the process to be completed. It's happening now, and then I can comment after the EAB has given its ruling. I don't want people to say I'm trying to influence the EAB here. On the oil refinery, we have not made a decision as to whether we'll go with the project as yet. We've had a number of us in, frankly speaking, I did not pay too much attention to this, but we have not made a decision at the policy-making level as to whether we go with the project, and if so, with whom, and much less on who will manage it. Okay? So no decision has been made, no firm decision on the refinery.
So there's a chance that you may not go ahead
we will cross that bridge when we come to it. But right now, no decision has been made in that regard. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
You just spoke about the PAC story that was carried in today's news.
PAC story?
Yes, with Mr. Figueroa. You mentioned the 2016, the document there about them being signed, it's signed off on the 2016 report. You just spoke about it.
Yeah,
In terms of-
I'm waiting.
Okay,
yeah.
so
I'm waiting.
what I wanted to know is the Treasury memorandum for 2016 been laid in Parliament?
I just said that. I just showed. Okay, all right. Well, no. Maybe I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I brought you evidence. Give her this, so that it could you could get it. I'll give it to you, so you can even see the. Here is from the finance secretary to Sherlock Isaacs, and the following document is submitted for placement on the order paper for presentation of the National Assembly. Treasury Memorandum pursuant to Resolution number 46, 2022, dated November 30th, 2022, on public accounts of Guyana for the year ending 31st December 2016. So it was November that the resolution was passed, and in February, within this 90 days, that this was sent. In this regard, I enclose here with 100 copies of the memorandum. Please give that to her.
My next question is on
And
the
that's in
amount
the
of-
public. That's in the public domain.
The amount of airlines that we have coming in here, we've been allowing a lot of could you say how is Guyana benefiting from these airlines? And my third question is, what is the interest rate that is that we are paying on those investments in the oil field? And can you say if you're going to put a cap on it?
So the interest rate question, I'm familiar with that, and that's been asked. I'm not going to go down that route again. It's the same questions that keep surfacing. Today, I'm not going to deal with issues that I've dealt with before. On the other issue, on the airline coming to Guyana, I think it's in our best interest to get as many airlines to come here to fly to Guyana, possibly to develop Guyana as a hub for regional travel. Also, for a number of reasons, I think, that were obvious to everyone. One, if we have greater competition, the fare would come down. We'd have more choices. And secondly, we'd also have greater freight capacity that would give a bigger impact to our exports, particularly perishable exports. So we're in a process of encouraging airlines to come. We're pleased that British Airways now would give us an access through Europe. We're trying to work with KLM to see if we can get into Amsterdam directly. Canada, I saw a new airline flying there. But one thing I need to say that is important, that whilst we are encouraging a large number of airlines to come here, and for the obvious reasons that I just mentioned, they all have to go through a very stringent regulatory process. And that is a technical body that the politicians don't get involved in. The Civil Aviation Authority, Mr. Fields, who heads that they have to ensure that these airlines meet a certain standard, international standard, before they're licensed to fly to Ghana. That's their responsibility. We as politicians, we're encouraging more airlines to come. Every day, Minister Onej Waldron meeting with people, talking to them, encouraging them to come, and many other ministers. But they all have to go through that regulatory process when they come here, and we don't interfere in that process. Yes, please.
Under the terms and guidelines for this licensing round, as it relates to the qualification criteria, can you say if those are set in stone? And in answering that question, can you also say if any company has reached out to the government to really change those particularly the one on the, for the deep water blocks that speaks to the production of 200,000 barrels of oil. And also, could you say now that the auction has been extended, if the government has a new timeline for the award?
Well, I think within a month and a half of the completion of the auction, which is now mid-July, that we should be able to, because we would have had all the documents. We probably would have a new law, new PSA, such as the contracts be ready. So a decision could be made swiftly. What we said is that a number of, you can put in bids for all the blocks, all 14 blocks, but we are going to award only 3 maximum per bidder. So potentially you can have about 5 different groups succeeding if they get 3 each, and then one will get probably 2. And so that is how it's structured now. Now, assuming we get a bidder, I don't see us changing any condition now at this stage. Not a single condition will change. We opted to allow locals to tender too because of the same question. So we went a bit low on experience because we've had 2 things, and I explained this. The Kaichor News was saying that a number of Guyanese got these blocks who had no experience in the sector, and they were flipping the bids, the blocks that they got. That was the early criticism. So we could have gone in the auction and say only people with experience, but that meant only the oil and gas companies. And then we were probably being accused of excluding locals from participating, since this is a gold mine. It's a gold mine. They're making so much money out here. The Kaichor News believes it's a gold mine. So we decided, let's go a bit low on the experience and allow locals to bid too. So I'm hoping that the people, they'll put in some bids, and then they can make a lot of money too, as I said the last time. Now, if they pay the 10 million signing bonus, which everyone has to pay, like for the shallow areas, and 20 million at a minimum for the deep areas, the 3 deep areas. So to get a block there, you have to pay 10 million up front just to get the block on US dollars. They can then flip it if they want. So that's why we said, because they would have invested and they would have had a committed schedule for exploration and everything else, and there would be penalties now if you don't carry through with your work program, which is a rated work program, which we define also in the bidding process. We define that to some extent about this. So people know what they're bidding on now. So I don't anticipate us changing any of the conditions now. But let me say one thing. So what if we don't get bids for all the blocks? We get one person who is bid for, say, 8 blocks. But those blocks don't have any other bidders. Some of the blocks have no other bidders. Sure, and they're prepared to pay the $10 million and have the same exploration program. Should we then award because you had no bids for those areas? Because they might be less attractive, there's no seismic and stuff. So that decision may have to change, but that's post-bidding when we see all of the bids in. But nothing will change now in the pre-bid period. But nothing will change in the pre-bid period.
Ken Robert, good afternoon.
Yes.
Quick question on the insurance matter. At the last press conference, you had expressed or shared concerns about the absence of a parent guarantee to the EPA on this matter. Could you give us an update on where the EPA is on these discussions? That's the first part.
Yeah, so you want to give me all the questions, or? Yeah.
Sure. Secondly, we've learned from the ongoing audit regarding the 1.6 billion in expenses that the insurance requirements for the co-venture partners were not fully satisfied. This was one of the issues raised. In addition to that, the insurance policy that we have from Exxon is from a company that it wholly owns. I'd like to know if this is of any concern to government, and how do you intend to address that matter?
Those are the two questions? Okay, all right. So I just had a briefing again. I spoke with the EPA before I came here, and so they said that they're in the final stages of concluding the parent guarantee. So they are working on it, and I anticipate it will be a matter of weeks before they conclude. But they said to me they're almost finalized. But I don't want to put any pressure, because at the technical, I don't want them to say I'm pushing artificial deadlines on them and they didn't get a chance at the technical level to go through it carefully. So I'm not putting any deadline on them, but they said to me, matter of weeks away from getting the parent guarantee. That's the first point. So in the audit says that, I think it's Ancon, is a fully owned subsidiary of Exxon. And that Ancon was the one that provided the insurance in that period. The auditors are supposed to look at a number of things. One, about their insurance, which they did, and whether it's competitively sourced. So if you read on in the audit, it says something to the effect that it operates, although it's a wholly owned company, it operates as a separate company, and the rates are competitive, and that they were satisfied that they explore the industry rates, and the industry rates, they're competitive with the industry rates. So that is what your auditor has to look. By virtue of basically a sole sourcing with a related subsidiary, whether they were charging us a premium higher than market premium. So if you look at it, they said they were satisfied that it operated at sufficient arm's length from the parent company, although it's wholly owned, and the premium was competitive with industry standards. And they listed the name of the industry agent that Exxon had contracted to establish the industry standard. That's part of the audit report too. Our big concern is, one, first of all, that the rates are competitively sourced and industry standard. So that is the position in the audit. So it says competitively sourced and sufficiently arm's length, although wholly owned subsidiary. Obviously, we have to verify for ourselves that process, because whether the premium in the future, that premium is according to industry standards and continue to be competitively sourced even through an agent, although it is a wholly owned subsidiary. So that is the future concern will be of the EPA. Now, from what I gather, for the $600 million we already have in 2022, because it had raised some issues also about the co-venturers not producing their part, Hess and Sinopec not supplying their bit. But now we have, for the full 600 million even from the local company, the certificate for full $600 million, covering all the co-ventures.
Bharrat with Kaichor News. My first question to you, sir. The PSA with Exxon provides for the company to recover costs in disputes flagged by an audit. And I can pull up the section if you would like me to. Guyana can only manage to reclaim this through arbitration. Can you say if you're comfortable with this existing arrangement and if government is prepared to go down this road to contest questionable costs?
Yeah, so I think it clearly, if you have a dispute, if they're saying we believe we've supplied, so of the $214 million that they flagged in the audit, they only said that $28 million should be removed from the cost bank and come over to the profit, basically, be part of available for distribution as profits. Because they found that a significant part of their Exxon's supplies of goods and services were sole sourced, almost 36%. But in the 36% of that was sole sourced, they found that about 28 million did not reflect industry standards where they were competitively sourced. So we could have a dispute over the 28 million. So Exxon may say, no, that's not true. So what happens if you have a dispute? You have to go to an arbitration process. The PSA allows them to basically not to make any adjustment until that process is completed. But if you have a dispute, you have to break the deadlock. And that is why there is a process through which that is done. We may have to strengthen that process. But right now, you would always have to have a dispute resolution process. Because if you have two parties that don't agree based on audits and they say, oh, we believe that it's competitively sourced, you have to do that. But also, the PSA says once that issue is resolved, then immediately the funds are available. It's a first charge on any future profit that they have, their share of profit oil. It's a first charge on that. So you have a means of getting it back immediately. So dispute resolutions have to be strengthened. I believe that it's standard almost every contract that you go to ICSID or you go to 3 arbitrators or a sole arbitrator. Almost any dispute, not just with oil companies, any international dispute, you have to, with a foreign company, you have to have those dispute resolution clauses. So that's how I see it. We're going to review it in the new PSA to see if we can strengthen, but you may not be able to eliminate the international dispute resolution clauses.
Please provide an update on the US $7.3 billion audit. The final report was expected to be handed over to government by March.
Yes, and so the report has been concluded and it's now with the technical people, and I'm now going to, they have to review it, the GRA, the technical group, and they have to then make, I'm not interfering. I don't want people to say, there was a view that we were hiding the audit because somehow we wanted to protect Exxon. We have a big team going through these audits because we want to see any area. We have auditors, but we want to see any areas where we believe we should strengthen. And they are helping us now a lot in resolving the issues now with the new PSA. and with also the new law. So a bit greater understanding of what's taking place in the industry. Already, the sole sourcing bit, we've practically watered that down a bit through the new Local Content Act, that we have watered that down a bit, and that may even be watered down further to ensure that we get less sole sourcing. But the key issue is that it's sourced competitively. So that one, yeah.
Wasn't too clear on your first response as it regards to the arbitration. Are you saying that the Guyana government is prepared to go this route? Because we have an expert in today's paper who's advising that this process is not just costly, but it's also very lengthy, and it's often exploited by the oil companies.
But could the expert tell us, if you have any company, how is this expert has resolved this anywhere in the world where we have any international company? Let me just give you an example. Where before that parking meter scandal that we had, they went to ICSID, the same one that's in there, the World Bank dispute resolution mechanism that's part of the PSA now. They have triggered ICSID. So how would you resolve it if not this route? Tell us how. Nobody says local courts. Nobody will accept the local courts. No international company would not accept that. Some of our own people may not want to accept it.
Well, the person did say that.
Yeah, well, that's why we got a lot of exports crawling all out of our ears, etc. Everywhere. The exports are everywhere. Yes. Before I go, let me give this young lady here, and then I'll go on. Kaichur is at 3 so far. Let me get this young lady here, and then.
Guyana from the Guyana Chronicle. I want to go back to the issue that you raised about carbon credits and the APA. How is government foreseeing the APA move to block the forest carbon payments affecting Guyana going forward, both in our current arrangement and as well as any sale into the remaining 70%? Can you say if the Amerindian villages have begun implementing their plans under the carbon credit money, and how the government has maintained that it doesn't want to intervene in creating their plans for them,
Yeah.
but the monitoring mechanism in terms of ensuring value for money, what is
sure.
being put in place or being done, as well as if they at themselves ask for assistance, if anything, any department has been created
Yeah.
or anything's being done in that area. You mentioned that looking at climate adaptation, agriculture, and sea defense as pertains to the remaining carbon credit money developed, as well put out a certain amount of money was put aside for cost of living measures. Is anything being done under that as yet or coming up?
Okay, so the APNO works through surrogates, and I've seen some new ones being created now all the time. So we suddenly have the same Janet Bulkan who's always been hostile to the PPP, who was on the board of the GFC under APNO, who's been criticizing our approach in the forestry sector for decades now, opposed to the low carbon development strategy and the Norwegian agreement. She is now part of an oil and gas governance network. They created a new NGO now. Mr. Bolai, the solar specialist, and part of the EITI that falsified what happened in Guyana, he's now part of that network. So they work through these surrogate agencies that hate the PPP. They can't come out on their own. They don't want to enter into the political fray and take us on, so they hide behind some of these NGOs. So APA has done that. You know the history. Jean LaRose was the deputy leader of APNU APNU's list in 2015. So they're clearly aligned. They distorted even recently who canceled. The head of the APA said that the PPP terminated the land titling unit. When we established the land titling unit, we put $10 million US dollars from the LCDS money to accelerate land titling. APNU closed it off, and she gave an interview in the Starbuck News, and then, then said the PPP had shut it down. And then there was a big furor back and forth between, I think, the Starbuck News and her about that. She said she was misquoted. She wasn't misquoted. She actually repeated it several times. So we've established that already. So they now have gone. They like to talk about FPIC. So they now are trying to block money for the Amerindian communities in the name of the Amerindians without consulting with any village. So free, prior, informed consent doesn't relate to them. So they've now written to ART, and ART has a grievance process through which you can trigger. And that's what they did. So that's how they're trying to block it. I think with approval from APNU. APNU doesn't like this too. You saw the negatives coming out. So this is where they're trying, but they can't block this year's allocation. They're trying to block next year's allocation, but we're dealing with that too. We're pointing out to the people who they really are. And on the village development plans, I think a few villages have submitted. I didn't keep track. 2 weeks ago I spoke, and one village was supposed to submit, and the others were on the verge of, several others were on the verge of submitting. Once the villages ask for help, the ministry has a mechanism through which it can help, but the request has to come from the villages. And the money is already sitting in their account. So it depends on the pace at which they develop it, but they have to go through a particular process in developing these plans. They have to take it to each villages, and they have to have a vote on the plan. And that's how you get a village buy-in into the development plans. So it's not just the two shower and two councillors sitting down and coming up with something. They have to go to a village council. And similarly to there's a mechanism to ensure that the resources are accountably spent. Climate adaptation is big for Guyana, important for managing water, not just flood control, water management, that is water from the sea, excessive rainfall, putting in the infrastructure to manage it, but also potable water from saline intrusion, a whole range of issues, and the availability of water for agricultural purposes, navigation purposes. That's why the low carbon development strategy has moved away, not moved away, but has put some supplementary sectors for close consideration that we are working on now, which is an integrated water development water resources management plan, and also biodiversity protection. So we've broadened it. So this will support projects along those lines. It may go to other areas too, but in bulk, it would allow us as a country to better prepare for climate change. So we don't have to take money from our budget now to put into these. Money from our budget can go into our education and scholarships and our hospitals and our pensioners, etc. That we get this source of funding to deal with those, to get our country ready. Many countries can't find the money to do so, like in the Caribbean. So that's one. The projects now, we have identified, we had, Marcel asked me this, and I explained that there are several projects that are at feasibility stages. Strengthen the Conservancy Dam. Remember, we have an earthen dam from King Grove all the way up the East Bank that protects the whole East Coast, Georgetown, from excessive water there. So when we build the Hope Canal, we can now take the pressure of that dam, but we need to strengthen the dam, probably make it wider. It's now earthen, probably do a bit more there. The sea defenses, we have massive. We have 3 kilometers of sea defenses in Region 5 that's in bad shape. I flew over there when we were going to Berbice. The president and I were flying over. So from the helicopter, you could see. It's really tough in the Berbice area because, you know, we have this cycle of erosion and then deposition, accretion. And so I think they're facing the brunt of the erosion cycle, whilst here in Region 4, we're in the accretion, the settlement. Like the mud bank is shifted up here, and you see the mangrove shifting with it too, right across here. So that will cost a lot of money. And we're now looking at funding for that because it's major spending there to keep the sea out in these areas. So that's one, the conservancy. Then a series of hope-like canals. Then we have to buy and install major pumping capacity, like so that we can get more water out faster. So even if the tide is high, you can still in the 6 hours period when you have to shut the coker doors and you can't get natural flow, you can then take the water and pump the water out and stuff. So a lot of those projects that are now being finalized as part of the ministry team, you will see, and we'd announce them. But as I said to Marcel, that all of this money that we earn from through the sale of forest carbon will go into a special account. That account will be audited separately. The audit will then come to the parliament. We will then notify the country and the parliament about all this spending in that area from the account. So it would be done fully transparently. What are the other issues? There are 2 other issues. You forgot, and I think I did too. Oh, the cost of living, yes. So no, we haven't touched the account as yet. We haven't touched it as yet. But you know it has to go through a period of consultation, and then we'll touch it. All right.
Just for clarity, you said that the co-ventures have worked out the ratio of payment for the insurance, and they've been issued with the certificate?
Now, what has happened is that apparently they're each liable, they will do that. But the 600 million that has to come from the local company to the EPA, they have the certificates to the $600 million, right? The 600. The parent guarantee is separate. We don't have that as yet. But the 600 million, remember the event-based one, that the EPA has a permit now from the local company, which covers all the ventures. Right. Which has not been concluded, was never concluded. Yes, when that's part of the arrangement. So when that is concluded, so we're fully covered and we have the certificate for that one-off event. And the way it works, the one-off event, you're covered for that. Then you have first call on the assets of the company. Then you have to trigger the parent guarantee in case it can't cover. So the assets of the company now, the last time we checked, Mr. Lal thought it's 100 million, but it was $6 billion US dollars. I think it has gone up now significantly more. So it's the first call. So that is what later you will see the parent guarantee with those proportions. Yes.
Good afternoon, BB. I want to deal with the Marriott and the apology you're asking for on the solar issue. I have two questions, and I have two follow-up questions from my reporters.
All right.
May I ask them
So
first?
yes,
Okay.
I'm waiting for the apology.
right.
Thank you. Right.
All right. I asked that similar question, the exact question my reporter asked you at the last press conference, in which I said the
No.
IMF, and all the world is asking to cap the interest rates. And when you were walking out, you did not answer it. When you were walking out, you said, Glenn, you will answer that question at the next press conference. Here you're telling us that you
All
will
right,
answer
so
that question.
let's hear you on the first two things first. So the Marriott, because I love to hear who the secret investor is and how much money was paid to them. So can you tell the country now, tell the people of this country, you've been at this for 10 years now, who the secret investor and how much money did they receive?
I would welcome any lawsuit from anyone on what I have said on the Marriott, and because what I've said
No, who is the
factual.
secret investor?
Wait, it's factual. I am talking about Republic Bank being the loan guarantor. Republic Bank, according to you and your government, was tasked to put together a consortium, sir. That is on record. If you Google that now, you see it everywhere. A syndicated loan was emerged out of Republic Bank Trinidad.
You're confusing.
You asked me to explain, and that's what I'm doing. A syndicated loan was put together by Republic Bank Trinidad for the investment into the Marriott Hotel. And that is how their investments came there, along with the GT&T shares.
Oh,
what I'm saying here is what was reported by your government. On to this day,
the problem.
wait, I'm coming to the secret investor.
Yeah.
I'm coming to that. On to this day, Republic Bank have said clearly in statements, that they were never investors in that Marriott Hotel. They were only tasked to put together a consortium.
But do you realize
And when, let me finish, please.
you're
Sorry.
not finishing because you're confusing? That's the problem. Knowledge, you can't. Yes. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. So come to tell us the secret investors, and this is all fluff.
Secret investors, when the coalition went into office, they could not bear the burden of the Republic Bank loan through the investors, and they requested a meeting with the private investors, and the bank told them very clearly that we cannot divulge information about our clients. So isn't that secret?
You sound as though. So APNU tried to meet with these secret investors. Yes. And the so-called secret investors. And Republic Bank said to them, we can't tell you who the secret investors are. So you got to learn that you can't remain in life information in this world changes a lot. Circumstances change a lot. That's why I'm saying the project was being developed as a public-private partnership where there was an investor. At some stage, because of the assault, the investor walked away. So you had to get a loan and a greater amount because we were putting in some equity, but we could not put in all of the equity. So Republic Bank produced a loan. Like any company, they gave a loan to the Marriott or to the government to conclude the Marriott. So when the loan was given to the government of Guyana, it's a loan as far as I know, and that's factual. You can check that. No. But it's a loan. Let me explain to you. I'm trying to educate you. So one, a loan was given to the government of Guyana. The hotel was built. So the government of Guyana owns the hotel with a loan. Like if you own a company, you take a loan, the investor don't own the bank don't own your project. You have a loan to the bank. That is it. So you mentioned about this, they were tasked to put together a syndicated loan. And that is where they went out to find the secret investors.
Ashley Singh told me that.
Now,
That was reported in the press, sir.
well, you don't understand what Ashni Singh said. Ashni Singh could be very complex. He's an economist, a finance person. And so you don't understand the concept of a syndicated loan. A syndicated loan, the word is loan, means that when one bank realizes that the risk may be too great or they don't want to invest as much in a particular project, they put out a prospectus and they get other banks to come in, like what the coalition did when they borrowed the money for the sugar. They had a syndicated loan for the sugar industry too. So GBTI was formed in, and a number of other people through a prospectus. But the loan, so those are, they raise the capital there, but they make the loan. They raise the capital as the bank, and then they make the loan. Those are investors. A Republic Bank could have 1 million investors. All our concern is that we have a loan, one loan from one bank, which is Republic Bank, and we're paying that loan. There's no secret investor. And I'm sure that Republic Bank, in fact, I would encourage them to say why they don't release the secret investors now. You don't understand the concept of a syndicated loan, and that's confusing to you. A syndicated loan means something else than what you're thinking about. APNU had a syndicated loan for the sugar industry. Why? The same thing, exactly same thing, a syndicated loan. This project is 100% owned by the government of Guyana.
That is correct.
When we pay, there's not been a single cent paid to any secret investor. Once the loan is paid off, then all of the other proceeds come into the coffers of the government of Guyana. The same project that you wrote 100 and something articles that it's a waste of time project and would fail and all of that. 100 other articles with all the speculations here. Today is a project that you yourself now saying is a cash cow. You just, yes, anyhow. That is enough. You don't know of any secret investor, you're wasting my time. Let's move on to the next issue. There's apology.
The apology,
For the solar.
the solar, I made contact with the company sent you an email, you forward the email, I have all this in my possession.
And
So you sent it to Peter Ramsroop made a one-line statement to the company. The company, they had a Zoom,
Can you tell this country, which is the company that would sell us solar power, 24 hours solar power at 4 cents, even 5. I was giving you 3 cents, you said 3, but I'm giving you 5 cents per kilowatt hour. Please, you have the name.
You're accusing me, you're asking me for an apology in which I was asked to put together a company to deliver a service. I am telling you why I am not going to give an apology, because the company tried to reach out to Peter Ramsroop,
Yeah, all right.
and they had a Zoom call, and Peter Ramsroop told them that, hey, you're wasting your time. We already tied on to the gas to shore project.
Peter Ramsroop never said anything
And
of
sir,
this sort.
and-
Please, but all right. Oh, assuming we're at fault. Assuming we're at fault. Let's say that so that I can end this gaffe. Let us, in the next month, you do one thing for me. You send to us again the company name, because everybody generating the whole world at 3 cents per kilowatt hour, it's a profitable thing. So you send us their proposal to supply power at 3 cents or 5 cents per kilowatt hour, 5 US cents per kilowatt hour. Send it to us, release it to the media. release it to the media, and then we'll have a public engagement with the company. We will call in this company publicly. I will invite the whole press corps to sit in at the negotiations with the company. And if you can't do that, then you must issue the apology. But you know, it's not the apology I want. It is what I'm hoping this will do is to correct your misguided notion, a misguided notion that somehow baseload solar power is available and cheap now. Baseload solar power. You could probably buy a panel and stick it up there and get it at 3 cents per kilowatt hour. But that, the moment you have to buy a battery, they're not making batteries now off the shelf that would store 300 megawatts of power. Where are you going to get a battery like that to store that? And then if you don't put batteries, the moment the sun goes down, you still have to build a 300 megawatts power plant to when there is no sun or cloudy days to supply the power. I'm trying to inform you, but you're stuck on this rhetoric. It's the same thing, like you can't evolve from the past, where you're not even prepared to open up your mind to this possibility. Just, I'm saying to you, look at the technical issues. If this was so cheap, you think you're smarter than all the technical people in the world? Why isn't the United States only going for solar? Why isn't Saudi Arabia only doing solar? Saudi Arabia is a desert. Or why isn't Mexico only gone to solar power? If they can get baseload solar power at 3 cents per kilowatt hour, 24 hours a day. No, the whole world will go that way. The entire Caribbean will go that way. You think, but it's not possible at this point in time. It's a fact that solar panels have become cheaper over time. But there is a difference. That's what I'm trying to say to this bullite. When you have a house and you put in a solar system for your household, versus running a grid, a national grid. A national grid. Very different things. You think the world wouldn't have gone this route? That you and Belai smarter than all the technical people in this whole world? But that's how you behave. And so we now have settled on a new thing. I'm forgetting all the old apology. We're working on a new one now. So you will, within 2 weeks, you get this company, you submit their proposal to us, share it to the media at the same time. Put it in your newspapers. Put it in the front page. This company now is supplying at 5 cents per kilowatt hour. They're ready to sign the contract for 24 hours baseload power. And 24 hours baseload, that means battery, not to just come and tell us only when the sun shines. And that's one. And two, when I will invite them publicly, and you will sit in at the negotiations too. I'll have you on our side. Since then you will see what it takes to get some of these deals going. So that's the second thing. So we move on now. Yes. On the other issue about capping, etc., I said all of these issues, the interest rate capping, it's complex. It deals with the cost of raising capital, whether it's competitively sourced, the availability of money now for the oil and gas industry. You know, many banks in the world today will not lend into fossil fuel, anything to do with fossil fuel, because they're moving away from that, their lending policy. Raising capital for this industry. We've seen in Guyana's case, you don't need to go far. The Biden administration vetoed the loan that Gisby had from the IDB, claiming that it was going to go for the oil and gas industry. And this is a local company trying to put in place only the infrastructure to service the oil and gas industry. And they got their loan vetoed. Vetoed. And so it's not easy to raise billions of US dollars in capital. So interest rates are reflective of the cost of raising capital. Sometimes it's better to have equity come in, and other times it's interest. It's a complex issue. But so the concern has been raised, just like all of the other concerns in the PSA that I have mentioned, mentioned, that you write about every day, that I mentioned, but we have a different view on how we address them. We address all of them now for the 9 contracts that were issued from Ramatar era, the whole Ramatar era, and Trotman, and then all of the 14, hopefully 14 new ones that we will sign. That's 23 new contracts will have the new law, the new PSA, all of these things about capping cost recovery, 10% royalty, all of that will be in the new one. The Starbrook block, we said before we came into government, we're not doing this. We don't want to kill the momentum. The moment you start a dispute, you kill the momentum of the industry, and everything dries up here for a while. And then you also can't get the investment dollars that are so scarce now for this industry to flow, which is what we want to flow here, so our local people can start doing better too. If you go down, you see the changing face of the city, largely because they're investing to supply the oil and gas industry. I'm sure you have a lot of friends who are now building apartments and homes only to rent to people, because we're looking to capitalize on their presence too. So that is my position. It's a complex issue, and sometimes you can't give a one-word yes or no answer, because it's a complex environment you operate in. And that's what I hope that you would understand. You make everything almost political, and in a way that is very disparaging and all of that. We can have a healthy debate without going that route. And it drags us down into that kind of debate, where we would hope to have a proper, dignified debate, but that people understand each other. You can't be more patriotic or nationalistic, or not nationalistic, but more patriotic than I am. Since when you think you're more patriotic than I am? And so you, because you shout, oh, Guyana, you're giving up Guyana all the time. We fought in those days when things are enough. When you, and you got your bread well buttered too, as many people have said. You know, we got to look after other people. Anyhow, let's don't go there. So, anyone else?
No, sir, I didn't take any question from me until now.
Oh, you didn't take?
You didn't take, I didn't get a question in.
You asked about your 2 things. All right, ask me another question. Yeah.
Please
And
tell
now
the
I will know if he understands anything.
Sir, please tell this gentleman, don't disrespect me.
All right.
Thank you.
You know.
Thank you. I just want to, at least, let us be civil, as you said.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
At least, could you share the information with us on the interest rate we are paying presently?
All right, okay.
That's a very simple question. You know, what we are paying. Don't you think the nation should know that?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Now, I want to follow up on the question Kiana Wilberg asked you on the insurance company. The oil company will only pay eligible cost, so said the contract. Contractor Exxon, insurance policy Exxon. What do you say about that?
Anybody understand that?
Okay. Let me simplify that. ExxonMobil, we are told today, is the insurance company providing insurance to the oil field out there, providing Guyana with insurance. And they, the contractor who's ExxonMobil, have to give okay before any insurance is paid to Guyana. That's the contract. Kiana, you have the contract, part of the contract there?
No. Yeah, give him the contract, please. Let me read the section. Give him the red contract. I don't know what he's saying. I'm confused. I think he's confusing lots of things. I understood what Kiana and the other reporters said, but I don't understand what you're saying.
Wait.
You should get the journalists to ask questions, man. You're a politician. You come, let the girl ask the question. Yeah, please sit down back, yeah.
Mr. Rutledge has said in the previous press conference that
Guyana, it would only pay for eligible costs with regard to an environmental disaster or any damage that takes place.
Oh.
So there's the concern of the relationship between ExxonMobil, the insurance to Guyana. There's a concern whether government, what measures or steps government would take to ensure that it is not ExxonMobil that is deciding what is paid to Guyana in terms of any
Yeah.
environmental damage.
Sure. So the issue is that whether, so that's a crucial issue, what are you mentioning there? As to whether the insurance would be on demand from our side, or it has to go through a process of ensuring that we're not demanding things. That's what they're saying, that they did not cause. So that's the resolution now that they're working through. That's one of the last issues on this parent guarantee resolution that I told you that they're going to resolve shortly. So that is clear from our side. We don't believe that Exxon should decide on the eligibility. But they're saying you can't also decide. What if you say this? So you probably have to find an intermediate step to make sure that it's assessed and with a party that both sides are comfortable with. So that is a critical issue for us. But they can't determine on their own that whole letter guarantee. Our view is that the 600 million is available, and should they even exceed, remember they have, I don't know what the last filing was, but probably be about maybe 8 billion, 9 billion in assets or so. I haven't checked it. But the last time, a year and a half ago, was $6 billion in assets. So that's the next step for us. If they can't, the 600 million can't cover the event, and they can get, say, cash flow. We have all of these assets for the company. But that point that you made just now, that's an issue that they can't decide what is eligible. Okay? So, but I understood the girl. I didn't understand you.
Okay. So my first question.
Yes.
This is my first question. And
That's your first question?
No, those were follow-up
You just
questions.
asked a question. You didn't know how to ask it. You were confusing
Well,
the hell
okay,
out of me.
at least-
all right.
At least
please.
I got it over.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Thank you. When will we know who are the beneficial owners of the Kaicho and Kanji oil blocks?
Oh, I answered that question 100 times before.
I asked for the mining contracts. You
Yeah,
answered
man,
that.
anyhow.
I'm asking about the
Please,
review.
I'm not getting involved in your political campaign here. You keep that for the bottom houses, man. You go in the bottom houses. What? You're going back. Listen, Glenn, you have a limited understanding of the issue, so that's why you got to fall back. You can't deal with the complex issue that the reporter dealt with. So that's what we want to talk about. But you want to go back to the mundane things, you know, that you raised about 100 times. Which project you asked about?
The field development plan reviews.
Yeah,
billions of US dollars,
no.
sir.
Yeah, but this gentleman asked me about.
I listened to your press conference and you haven't said anything about oil. Anything.
I haven't said anything about oil.
And this is why we
About
need to
oil.
ask you questions about this in this $1 trillion oil sector we're sitting in.
It's either I'm mad or you mad.
No, the review.
One of the
$1
two
billion
things, and I
review.
don't think I'm a madman, right? So this man said, I said nothing about oil. I answered several questions from your reporters about the oil and gas industry. I said nothing.
I'm
Yeah.
not talking about the questions, I'm talking about your presentation, sir.
Man,
your
did I not
presentation.
say at the beginning, that we are working to do a number of things? I said this. One, that these are complex issues, but we have gotten past a change in the Natural Resources Fund Act that would allow you, Glenn Lal, to know every single day we receive any money from the oil companies, you will know instantaneously as soon as it's published. No, no, no. But I'm just telling you, I said that at the beginning. You say and said nothing about oil and gas. So I mentioned about this, the Natural Resources Fund Act. You know what you can do now as Glenlal that you couldn't do under APNU? You could know now before the end of the year, on December 31st, before Ashley Singh ever speaks, how much money we've collected for the year from the oil and gas companies. You can know that now as Glenlal. You wouldn't have known that in the APNU. 2, you can then take this formula that is now in the legislation, and you can apply the formula to the sum that we've collected, and you will know how much money will come from the Natural Resources Fund Act to the budget even before Ashley Singh presents the budget to the National Assembly. You, Glenlal, can know that. Under Jordan's formula, nobody except him would know it because he had to have a macroeconomic committee, an investment committee determining fiscally sustainable sums. You see, you're losing interest because these are complex issues. You want to hear what? No, yes. But you just said, no, you just said I did not say anything about the oil and gas industry. You don't expect, I came here and I said,
Sir, what you have said here, you repeated that many times on many press conferences.
Let me finish. Let me finish. You heard what I said at the beginning? I need to repeat these because we're not going to allow your narrative that nothing has been done in the sector or the PNC's narrative that wants to take us away from all the development things to race. So I will repeat it. But when I said I did not want to repeat the details, you just said I didn't say anything about the oil and gas industry. So I'm just telling you, I mentioned the reform of the Natural Resources Fund Act. Now I realize that I have to go through its component details to explain to you what you have today, what you didn't have in past, and yet you're saying we didn't say anything and we didn't do anything. I'm going through all the details, which can take days for me to do that. I don't think I can bear to see you for days, but I can do that. Because one thing I want to make clear, that this government has been busy addressing a lot of the issues that you shout about, but in a quiet way that is reflective of the complexity of the problem. It's not just black and white. So that's what I was trying to go. But if you want me to go through the details, you want me to go through the details, I wouldn't go through, man.
You have to decide
You want me to go
expenses. You come back at this press conference and you didn't tell us anything. And if we are to ask you, you're going to say we're asking again.
Yeah. All right.
What about the expenses, sir?
That's what we are addressing in the new PSA, man. We're addressing this in the new PSA.
Now, at present, what's going on with ExxonMobil and their partners? Now, presently,
that is true. The audits just, how do you address you if the expenses, clearly they have to make expenses. They have to have expenses. You can't get the FPSO for free. You can't get a screw for free. So they have to have expenses. But the issue is you have to hire auditors who know the industry, and they will then comment on whether these expenses, the expenses are reasonable. Are they industry standard? So that is what the auditors have done. And the auditors have said, we find that $28 million of your expenses are unreasonable because they were not competitively sourced. We also find of the $1.6 billion that $180 million you have not supplied adequate documentation for. So that is what they're addressing now, the expenses. That's what's happening in the audit. There are eyes on the auditors, and then once they're completed, the technical staff plus the GRA staff, they're the second line of defense at the technical level before it gets to politicians.
Yeah, but sir, what you're saying there is from 1999 to 2017.
Yes, but-
I am talking about presently the
No,
billions.
but the audit has just been done. The audit has been completed for that period. And now they have adverse finding too. And then they would have to go through the same process. Oh, you're not a reporter? You walk with a heavy, you walk in a battalion here, you all clean out Stabrook Kaito News there. Right there. Me take away, boy, you hate me a lot. I take away his reporter. Yeah. I take away Kima from reporter. You hate me a lot. Critic left you on his own. You train all of them. That is why critic a little bit on the other side too. Just like you, yeah. And you know, if you train critic, you're all on the same wavelength, yeah.
Dr. Jagdeo.
Yes.
Well, you already know I am part of the battalion, as you said,
Yeah.
so I don't need to say it again. But I just want to take you back to the gold mine. I can recall, I just want to ask, why has the government, your government, not yet released or the mining contracts that the media has been asking for? I mean, you said, I can recall at one of your last press conferences that you don't see no need why it should not be public. Mm-hmm. And recently we've learned about a company that has been producing about 1,000, well, the information that I've received, 1,000 to 1,200 tons of bauxite daily. And I think they employ about 500 persons. And I know your government is big on providing jobs, but...
Where is this? Which company?
This is in Linden. This is Bosai.
Bosai.
Right? But we still don't know how
The
much...
fiscal terms, yeah. But
yeah.
You see, I don't see what's the big secret about the fiscal terms, because they're practically the same for everyone, but they got concessions. And it's not like there's any, I don't see any big secret about revealing the fiscal terms of the contract, even if they have any other problem, because they will get duty-free on machinery and equipment like we give to mining sector, but they have greater obligations on the other hand. For example, the royalty rate, say the miner, the foreign mines, they have to pay a royalty rate of 8%, or people, I think, paying just over 2%, a royalty rate that is local. The large-scale companies get an agreement, but then they have to pay a higher rate of royalty. So I don't see that as a problem, because there's nothing secret about it. We don't have any beef about it. Glenlal took the Baishan one and chased the people away from there, and then now the people in Kwakwani and Aichuni don't have anybody to buy their logs now. We had a depression in the area. We're trying to now get some people to get, saying they got all these concessions. I made one offer to Glenlal on his program. I said, if you believe that there's a gold mine, and with he was talking about the bauxite people, the Rusal people, when they were here, and they have all these concessions. I said to him, listen, they were doing about 600 jobs or so at that time. I say, you, as Glenlal, you put together a group of Guyanese. Take over the operations. We'll hand you the operations. We'll give you even more concessions than they have, but maintain the 600 jobs. That's all we want. We'll give you even more concessions than they have. But in that area, we want the jobs in Region 10 in those areas. No response, of course. It's easy to criticize other people. But when you have to actually do that and provide a job for people in these areas, in a world where our markets are getting hammered, because in Africa, the bauxite, they have deep water ports, and they have a railway that goes to the port. Here, the transshipment costs alone to get our bauxite out and everything, to ship it out, puts maybe about $8 more per ton on freight. That can make you uncompetitive. That's one. Two, the bauxite in those countries, like at the surface, Here, we have a huge overburden. We have a better quality bauxite, but we can't do that. So you got to look at all of that, what's happening in global markets. If it's so lucrative, we made an offer. You do it, and we'll give you more help. But not just a gaffe, because at the end of the day, those people in that area need to be fed. And that's how APNU dealt with it. They gaff about it, and then Russell walk away. And now all the workers down there, and even in New Amsterdam, those who are working with Ollendorf and everything, they just, nearly 1,000 people lost their jobs. And it's left with us now, the BBP, to try to sort it out. It happened one time before. Lincoln Lewis used to say the same thing. Oh, by the way, I forgot about Lincoln Lewis, since you mentioned this. But let me tell you what Lincoln Lewis. Lincoln Lewis was saying we had black gold, and then the people walk away from Araima, the Alcoa, walked away, left it, and handed it over to us for $1. They said, you all take it. And the same thing happened at Everton too. And the workers were then stuck after being led up to believe that they were going to get high wages and stuff. There was not going to be no operation. We took over back the company, the government of Guyana, took over the company. And I met with the workers to help with them. And Lincoln Lewis walked in the meeting, and the workers chased him away. That's why he hates me with a passion. And these are all Afro-Guyanese workers, because he had misled them. So this Lincoln Lewis, I saw him saying, he appeared at there's a modus operandi now. If you get charged by the police for any offense, your defense is go out and make some political statements and then claim discrimination. So he was trying to steal some people's land in Berbice. A whole village he is trying to steal there. Can't produce no document of ownership. Carried people there who were with cutlasses to fight and all sorts of things. Got caught, the police looking for him because threatening behaviors. He was hiding. And then suddenly he appeared on a program and said, Jagdeo is the butcher of unity. You know, that's his tone of language. That I suddenly moved from killing sheep and chicken to killing people. You should look at the program. It's funny. I found it funny that I'm a butcher now, that I'm killing people now. Something outrageous. So when the police call him in now, because they're already looking for him, he can say, oh, because I criticized Jagdeo, and call him a butcher. That is the way they operate. They prey off people. So my point is that on these arrangements, I don't see any problem releasing the fiscal concessions that we give to investors. But I'm only asking that you have a nuanced view when you report. You look at the world market and the challenges. So I'm going to personally, because I've never personally tracked this down, to find out why the fiscal part, leave out the other parts of the contract, but where they get concessions, that part can be released.
So just before I go on to my final question, so you're saying that you
I personally track it down.
No, I just wanted to know, so you to clarify, you're only willing to release part of the contract.
Because if they're proprietary, that's the big issue. They have always been the proprietary issue. Glenlaw, I wouldn't give him a child's nursery school writing because he can distort it, much less a complex contract. I wouldn't give him a child nursery school traveling, because everything you distort. Look at the audit. But the fiscal part is where the concessions are. That's what they've been arguing about, the concessions, what they get. The other things, if they're proprietary stuff, the sector can argue against proprietary information, but they can't argue against making the fiscal terms known. They can't say to me, no, we can't let the country know, because the fiscal terms should be known to everybody who's getting concession and who is not getting concession. That should be known to everybody. And so I can't, if I get that pushback that it's proprietary, then I'd say no, but the fiscal is not proprietary. Release that. Yes.
So I heard you mention that you think it's not important. So is this the reason why the government has not been too keen on releasing these contracts, because it's not that important?
You sound like Glenn Lal. I see it's rubbing off on you. You just heard an explanation about proprietary. You just heard about proprietary, and that's it. You just heard about the proprietary concerns. And for your edification, and I already see you got another school coming up. We got to deal with another wave of people in the future. Thankfully, we are rehabbing a particular hospital. But I just said, on the transparency side, we have released, the last time I was in, we have released the LISA environmental permit. It was not released before by APNU. We published that. We published LISA 2 permit. We've published PIR permit. Every permit that we have issued from the EPA, that has been made public in that sector. We started releasing now production data, all of that. The water discharge, emissions, everything. Those are on the website. That was not there before, so you can track all of this detail now. We have now uploaded all of the licenses that were issued, the licenses. So every one of them is on the website in the oil and gas sector. We've uploaded for the auction. If you look at the information, the maps of what's available, the coordinates of the map, the conditions of the auction, everything. We've uploaded at the PSA and sought public comments on the PSA. We have uploaded the new terms and changed those of the PSA, the fiscal terms. So I can go down the long list of things that were not there before that are there now. But the same way that Glenn Lal wouldn't want people to know his business, when you deal with government too, you as an individual, you want people to safeguard your information too. They talk about private information. So that is it. That is it. Not transparency, but about proprietary information. Thank you very much.
Just one final question before I go. This is the last press conference. I know you have your position on how, especially Kaiser News has been reporting and so forth. You promised to still answer questions, no matter what. So will we see more government press conference dealing with oil and gas matter?
I told you more government press conference dealing with oil and gas matters. You've asked me more questions in this one here than you've had in 5 years of APNU. And you have to be comparative too. More questions, any pertinent questions, but no more nonsensical questions. I'm prepared at any point in time to answer any policy questions, but not campaign questions. Glenn Lal, you're contesting local government elections too? You did not answer my question. All right, I did. Thank you very much. Let's go. Yes. You train the critic here.